Well, he's somewhere in Phoenix City.
He's like looking for
It was a bad deal last time.
It's easy to get stuck in.
He tried to bring you back, but he got picked up.
Well, it happens. Well, the major question is who's playing this concert tonight? I'm not doing it.
Yep, you're doing it.
Now, her job is to play solo. He'll play with his wife, and I'll play the second guy solo.
Sorry, buddy, to Robert, I couldn't get over that.
What?
When you left the concert, sorry, buddy.
Robert's ready.
There he is.
Hey, there he is.
Do you want any kind of seating arrangement? Should I go anywhere?
Hey, I'm gonna ask you to introduce yourselves.
Okay, sure.
Can we say like what we practice?
Unless you have a preference. I can go there.
I don't.
My name is David Russell. I'm a Spanish guitarist and Scottish and I recorded a whole bunch of really beautiful albums in 1970s.
No, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so that's one hot mic that's.
They're all gonna be hot, but right now they're
Oh,
muted up
here.
there.
We have mics for everyone.
You guys are gonna share this one between y'all, and that's gonna
That's safe.
because McKay didn't tell me he took all wireless mics.
I'll be just
Yes,
There's more.
but also the stream is going right now, so. It's okay. Like I said, all these mics are not hot, so.
So I think
Oh, we can preview the.
apparently the stream's
I love the addition of the arm sock.
Yeah.
I figured, you know, my nice guitar look. It's showing his dedication. Yeah.
It's a tattoo, really. It's a tattoo. Um, yeah, she had a student that had a, he had an arm and a sock. Yeah. But it's black. It's like a yeah, he wasn't bright.
We talked about it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I was like,
You know, it's like when you see people with guitars.
But still around,
yeah.
is it late?
No, it was around.
Yeah.
Okay.
My first experience here was when he won.
Yeah. Yeah.
My first experience.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Randomly dedicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just, yeah. We're just dealing. Pass the mic. And we're not.
No, I thought we were just doing from the here.
Is it, would it be appropriate if I did more?
I think you should open up the show. If we're just in a description about what this conversation is about.
Love on the rocks.
This panel on one knee. Was this?
I don't see that.
We all know all. That would be killer.
Do I look casual enough or too casual?
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Just enough guys.
We're ready to go?
Whenever you guys want.
Let's start. Are we all here? Are we missing someone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8. Okay.
It's starting.
Okay. Good afternoon, and welcome to the first event of the CSU Guitar Symposium 2022. I'm Everson, the Joe and George Dieter Distinguished Chair in Guitar here, and we have assembled before us an incredible panel of very young, talented artists, and we're going to talk to them about the transition from student being dependent on an institution, and then being a professional, being self-dependent. And we have a vast difference in age, in groups, and experiences that might shed some light on how to, go through this very, very difficult passage. I'll ask these fine folks to introduce themselves. Chad?
Hello, my name is Chad Everson. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Chad Everson. I'm a guitarist based in Austin, Texas. I graduated here in 1978. No, sorry, 2010.
My name is Janet Grahovac. I'm also from Austin. Chad is my duo partner and husband. And we're happy to be here for this talk.
I'm Alec Holcomb, and I studied with Dr. Zone in 2013 to 2017 privately. And I'm originally from Nashville, and I guess currently I'm in Miami.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Wilder. I'm currently doing a DMA in Boulder, Colorado with Nicolas Spera. I graduated from undergrad here in 2016, and that's it. Yeah, really happy to be here again. Haven't been here since my recital, I think, in this room.
Probably not, yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erdong Li, and I'm originally from China. I came here in 2014, studied with Dr. Zong for my artist diploma, and then I did my master here as well. So I graduated in 2018, and now I'm living in Atlanta with my wife as a musician, and we run our private studio, also playing in a duo with Dr. Zong, and I'm also very glad to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Wei Rushen, and I'm the only non-guitarist here. I'm a violinist. Thank you. I'm here because my duo partner, my husband also, we have a duo, and I did my master and undergrad here since 2012, so it's my 10th year here in the States. So we graduated in 2018, right? Yeah, 2018. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to kind of start this discussion with a little bit of a foundation about a lot of students, when they go to music school, they have to learn the trade of music making. They have to understand technique, understand performance ability and expression and everything that comes with that. That's not what we're going to talk about today. We have a really unusual group of people who are in various stages of their professional relationship post graduation. And so what we really want to talk about is, what does one do at the end of being reliant on an institution to start becoming self-reliant and starting to make a profession out of classical music and classical guitar, which seems almost completely unlikely. But yet here we all are. So does anybody have anything to start out with in terms of where you are in your profession and the journey between graduating from an institution and then figuring out how to make a living doing what we're doing? Does anybody have anything to start with? And then we'll go to questions.
Like I said, I graduated here in 2010, and then I went on to do my master's in is this thing on? It's on. I went and did my master's and my doctorate at University of Texas, Austin. I got a fellowship there, and so that meant I graduated there from 2016, and you know, when I was in school, because I came at school a bit older than most people. I actually was 31 when I came here to do my undergrad. So I had a whole nother life and I taught, and I played in bands, and I toured and did other things. So I really got to experience music. I've always been a musician. So I got to experience a whole different culture, a whole different way of doing things. But when I was here, I was definitely a student. I didn't teach too much. I spent a lot of time researching, really absorbing everything, what it was like to be a student. But once I got out, you start the job search, and really you try to get, an adjunct job, or if you can get a better one, fine. And that's actually what I did right when I got out, and really, what I love to do alongside performing is teaching. So that's immediately, when we were building our private studio. And as of now, we have a business there in Austin. It's called Hyde Park Guitar. It's in the middle of Austin. Sure.
That's actually a very, very interesting subject for us. But I would like for other people maybe to talk about their post-graduation experience and how you've maybe transferred into, becoming a consumer of education to becoming a giver of education, and instead of paying tuition, actually taking in tuition.
Yeah, so the end of my graduate school experience, I was at UT Austin as well for a master's and doctorate. And mine sort of transitioned naturally because I started working at the end of my doctorate. I already was working at a couple of universities, I was working at TLU and Houston-Tillotson University. So it was sort of a smooth transition because I sort of kept my ears open for job openings just before I was finished. So I was already teaching a fair amount, and I already sort of knew, that I loved teaching and connecting with students. So, and I guess shortly, sort of during that time as well, I started building up my private studio. So I would say it was sort of an organic experience for me because I wasn't finishing school and looking for a job and having no students to start. So that was sort of helpful, I guess, internally for me that I had that stability.
Down the line, we start to come to some of our younger artist faculty here who are in places still in the midst of their education, but also having one foot in the professional group. And so we come to Alec Holcomb, who right at the precipice of COVID finished his master's degree and was ready to take on. Tell us what your experience was like in the last couple of years.
Sure. And when I introduced myself earlier, I said I said the wrong dates when I studied with you. It was 2009 to 2012.
Really? That long ago?
Yeah. Oh. It felt right to say 13 to 17, but it was totally wrong. Yeah, it was very, very wrong.
Only wrong by
I was 13
5 years.
when I started, so that's where never mind.
Maybe,
yeah. Yeah, I guess I should start with my background in guitar. I've always been a very competitive player, and I've been in that mindset for a long time, and that's been, up until more recently, most of my understanding of the guitar community. My hope was that doing well in competitions, that would help get a head start in a performance career, which is my interest. I do like teaching, but it's not my end goal. And so I don't know, I got kind of burnt out right around the time COVID started, and I luckily had the chance to set down my guitar for 6 months, honestly not knowing if I would pick it back up. And I think the distance from, I love the guitar community, but I think the distance from it really helped me change my perspective of the instrument and the music that I like to play. So what I did was I kind of, for the last 2 years, have been looking towards other artists and outside of classical music, how they portray themselves, what kind of music they play. I don't really listen to classical music ever. And
ever.
Sometimes I do, if I have to go to a concert. But I still do love it. I love playing it, but I feel like I've been so surrounded by this since the time I was 13 that it was time for me to look elsewhere. And I have been, and I've been enjoying that. And so in the last 2 years, I've kind of built a video studio in my parents' basement. I hung up trusses, put up lights, did backdrops, learned how to work cameras, learned how to edit videos, learned how to record audio, learned how to build websites, and all this other stuff, because this is all necessary these days to have a career. I now know my brand color palette by heart, and these are the things that you don't know that you kind of have to have, but you certainly do. And I still have so much more to learn, and I'm still learning it. So.
We're definitely going to bring that subject up again, so hang on to that. Other skills that are involved beyond playing the guitar.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all of it's really great to hear, really interesting. For me, so I guess I can talk a little bit about, since graduating from here, from undergrad, since I'm still doing a doctorate now in Colorado, my experience, and something that I think is maybe helpful to say, is that I think in music, the job search, and it depends on kind of the ratio of performing, teaching, et cetera, you want to do. I think it's different than a lot of fields in that I don't think it's the same as certain fields where you graduate and then you begin the job search. I think, at least in my experience, the people I've worked with, had work from, been hired by, all of that's been people I've actually met in my degrees, and you're actually working a lot of the time during your education as well. And so I think a big lesson I learned here, and I've thought about a lot since, is that there aren't really low pressure performance situations, I don't think. I think they all matter, because you don't know who's listening, who you actually want to collaborate with in the future. You know, it's always music. You know, music is music. You don't want to ever not try and not really present your best. And so I think something about my experience so far, especially since I'm still in school, is that it didn't really work for me to wait until after to start working and teaching, and it always happens during your education, because a lot of people that I'm collaborating with now that I still know very well, I met here, including Dr. Zone and Irvine Weyer, and yeah. So I think that's something about my experience, and I also took time in between my degrees to do recording projects and to not worry about going straight through, which you also experienced maybe, that everyone's going to have a very different path and way to create the music and the art that they want to create. So I don't know if that kind of answers that. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, so I think my experience is on how to looking for a concert and build up your performance career from a student, from the all the way bottom, and then a little goes a little higher and higher. So I've arranged 3 tours in China, 2 with Wei Ru and 1 with Dr. Zong, from 2017 to 2019, and then the COVID came, so we couldn't do that anymore. But then I followed Dr. Zong to play some concerts that he found in the States. So I think I would talk about this in a business way. So if you're gonna be a performer, I think more or less it's like a business if you're looking for a concert, because the major audience is not musician or college students. It's going to be outside who is not musician. So if you're working with agent or any theater, that's what you're going to play or what's in your program. I think that's very important, because in China I've talked to some. We have a very big chain theater company called Poly Theater, and they don't generally take solo musician unless you are a super big name. Or duo thing, and same if you are not very, very famous. And they would like to have a big ensemble, because people would pay for see more people on the stage. That's literally what they said. So I think the first thing I would say is if you're gonna look for a concert, you wanna be a performer, one thing is what you're gonna perform. So you are gonna be a soloist or play in a duo or like a chamber music, and then like what program you're gonna make. Because it cannot be just like a random thing, like whatever you learned in the university and just put them together, right? It has to be something like at least has some meaning or like your thought in there. So I see this as your like the design of your product. So it's like, for example, like a car company, they will have like different level cars, and they have like different customer looking for, right? Like different series. They have SUV, they have sedan, they have supercar and small car. So like your repertoire and like the structure of your playing is gonna be like the design of your product. And the second thing I would talk about is how you look for a concert. Like as for most people, when you just graduate or when you are still in a school, like most likely you are not gonna go to the GFA organization or the board and say, hey, can I play a concert for you guys? Most likely like they're gonna say no. And also like the concert is not gonna fall like automatically to your hand. So we need to build up from where we just graduate as a like nobody, like a student, and then finally go to like the point that like some festival or like real deal in the world is gonna invite you. So my experience is the first tour that I did with Weiru is we looked for all the possibilities, like even it's a free concert in China. I just called everybody in China, like my friend or somebody I know who has the potential to give me a concert. And I would not ask like how much you're gonna pay me. It's just like, is that possible? And then we're gonna like figure out about money thing. Like if you're gonna pay me $1,000, that'll be great. But if they say like, oh, well, we probably only gonna pay you $100, that's fine too. And yeah, so also I think, even before that, you need a lot of practice, like just playing on the stage, like play the entire concert program, like before you're really asking for a concert. Because this is what we did before that tour. We just called a church like in Columbus, and we played a free concert there. We booked a Lexi Hall, because we were still student here, and that was for free. So it wasn't for degree or any like school requirements. It just we want to run through our program on the stage and for audience. So that's another like free one as a practice we did, and I think we did another one, right? Like I think 3 in a row, and then we feel like also we played the winter concert for the Southern Guitar Fest, and that's like 4 concerts before we went on the tour in China. So I feel like pretty comfortable, but still like very nervous, because that will be the first like real tour we started. And then like we did this first tour together. And yeah, so I think when you just graduate, and if you are not a like international like GFA competition winner, maybe like you want to find all the like coffee shop, or like there are 4 churches I know like downtown just next to school, which you can easily ask them if you want to play a concert there, and I believe like most of them gonna say yes. And after you do like 10 or 20 or 30 of those concerts, maybe you can go out and ask for the next level thing, like maybe in a middle school, elementary school, where it has a guitar program or some minor competition. They might, if you say I can play a free afternoon concert or something, they might take you there and give you a concert. And after you've done like 20, 30 of those, maybe like you can start asking some like higher level, like the Symposium, or maybe like the Troy University you guys just done, or like some real festival. They may still say no to you, but at least you can show them I've done like 50 concerts already, and I got this program, I got experience, and here's my like concert video, or you just got a lot of things in your hand. So it's better than say like, oh, I just graduated from like CSU and I want to play a concert for your festival. That looks like most likely like you're not gonna get the gig. So I think like my experience is like on this, like how you build up the performance like career from all the way bottom, and then like just little like going up, and until like you go somewhere. You just keep doing it, and you will hit up like somewhere that you actually were looking for, or like your dream is. Yeah.
Now, Weber, your experience is going to be very, very different from the rest of the people.
That's right. That's
yes,
right.
tell us.
So, I mean, as a violinist, usually our career is one, you be a soloist or chamber player, or three, you just go out to audition orchestra, professional orchestra, which that was my first, I guess, my dream job when I came here. I wanted to do that. But then after playing orchestra for several years, I realized I don't like playing orchestra that much. So, and it's very competitive. So like for, I don't know, not even for famous orchestra, any professional orchestra, if one spot open, it's gonna be like hundreds of people to audition. So it's like really, really hard to get in. So I decided to just look for other option of my career. And then, as you guys hear from what Erdon said, I'm very lucky that so I have two major I guess jobs. One is teaching, and another one is playing with him. But as you guys heard, I don't really have to worry about getting concerts because he's the one that's in charge of that, which I'm very lucky. So the other one about getting students, I don't know if do you want me to talk about this right now, or are we gonna do this?
No, let's move on, and then we'll talk about students and teaching and things like that.
So yeah,
we happen to have a really bright panel of students here who all have a very legitimate shot of making a very rich and fulfilling career in music, and I think they've prepared some questions. So why don't we start with some questions from the students? Riley, you want to begin? You handle this?
This one?
Yep.
Okay. So this is actually kind of similar to Dr. Zone's opening, but I thought I'd ask it anyway, and if you don't have anything more to add, that's okay. But what were some of the most impactful things, like projects, practice habits, or opportunities that helped you bridge the gap between student and professional? And is there anything specific that you would recommend current students to focus on or be more aware of?
If you don't have anything particular to add, don't feel like you need to. Let's just go down the line and see who wants to address the question. And he's giving it to Chad.
Yeah, there's a little something. I mean, I think a good thing while you're in school is to really, I know this is what made this school so great. Number one, Dr. Zone would bring, obviously, I mean, you all know this, bring artists here, and you really get to spend time with them and kind of pick their brain and get ideas from them. But not just that, during the summers, regardless, even if you compete or not, you go to as many festivals as you can, and you make relationships with anyone you can, from, whoever was organizing that particular festival, talking to the artists, the other students there, even luthiers, guitar luthiers, learn a little bit about how the, guitar stuff, and so it kind of opens up your world kind of quickly, and with COVID, that's maybe different, but it seems like things are kind of coming back. So, I would go to as many places. I know that we used to go, to a lot of those, just little surrounding festivals, and it just makes the community, I mean, obviously you can do that with the internet, but just going there kind of gives you a lot of experience, because each time you travel and go somewhere, you just become a little bit more. And then competing. We were talking, though it can burn you out, but the main thing I would say is just, it makes you better though too, and just keep really positive if you're in a situation where you want to compete, because that's a good way too to get recognition. It certainly, it helped in my case. I met so many people, and it's so palpable to compete. In that way, it makes it a lot of fun. But that's what I think. So it's not just that it's just your school. It's just that whole opportunity, that whole thing where hopefully you have the time and the wherewithal to, or the means to go out to festivals and all the other things. But
yeah, I think this sort of builds on what Erdong was saying. about, you know, outreaching and playing as many concerts as you can as you're building your career. One thing that I think that's helped us in is that we played at a lot of schools as we were, you know, graduating and transitioning into our careers. So that gave us practice, first of all, for our concerts, but it also, we had students contacting us from those schools, especially if it's a good, you know, a school with guitar classes in it. And then our word would spread and our studios blew up through that. So we, you know, contacted as many schools as we could to do that. And that sort of built opportunities for us. And we did that a lot, I think, as we were graduating and in that first year after graduation, just to get to know people and to get out.
I think the biggest thing, if I could go back and tell myself what to work on, is maybe to reorganize what you value, because what you learn to value in school will not necessarily translate afterwards. And by asking, like Chad said, by asking artists out there who are doing the thing that you want to do, you know, what is meaningful, what should I care about, they're not going to say, like, you should become a better guitar player, because the truth is you're already good enough a guitar player. Learn and get better for yourself, but people do not care. People don't, like, they're not guitarists. They don't know what we're doing most of the time. And for yourself and for other players, of course, do your best, but past that step in your life, I feel like people, what they want is something completely different, and learning what that means is the new value in that. Yeah, I don't know. That's the best I could do.
Pretty good.
So what comes to mind, there are just two main things I'd like to talk about. One of the things, I think with your question anyway, I can answer it regarding my time here, which one of the most valuable things, besides studying with Dr. Zone, of course, was chamber music, actually. And the pattern, I don't know if it's still the same, but regularly working with vocalists, flutists, violinists, and all of the collaboration that is organized here was extremely valuable in a lot of ways. Just the mere fact of working with other instrumentalists, and of course quartet, duo, all of that stuff was really valuable to me. Still is valuable, since I'm still actively playing a lot of chamber music, and I love chamber music. But also, in particular here, I don't know if it's everyone's experience, but I think a lot of guitarists don't necessarily, at least before studying somewhere like here, don't necessarily have the experience of having really concrete expectations for the first rehearsal. And so that being established clearly by Dr. Zone, Dr. Martin, a lot of different professors here, where it's very clear you know your part and you're here to make music on the first rehearsal, and not 5 rehearsals in, you kind of figure it out together, you're still writing fingerings, whatever. That's just not what anyone wants, you know. Anyone you collaborate with, nobody wants to be dealing with that if you're trying to make music together. And really bring the same level, at least that's what I tried to do and tried to do here, is bring the same level to my chamber music as I do to anything solo, where that's an equal representation of who you are as an artist. And a lot of times a lot more maybe subtle, challenging in chamber music to really know what it means to be an accompanist and really blend with someone else and all of that stuff. The second thing, which is not exclusive to my experience here, but more after, is recording. Recording is one of the most educational things I've ever done, and also one of the more painful things I've ever done. With the project I recently did, it hurt, but still, really, I think my opinion is that I think most, at least it's very true for my case. I'm much more capable of listening and teaching myself than I realize when I'm playing. So to actually really honestly face my own playing in the mirror by recording really changed a lot of things and really developed my aesthetic, I think, for what I actually want to listen to. And realizing that there's actually quite a big difference, or there was quite a big difference that I'm always trying to bridge for what I actually want to listen to as a music lover my whole life and what I am actually doing playing. Because I think it can be easy, and again, I'll limit it to my own experience, to have ideas of, oh, I'm this kind of player. I do this kind of music, I do this kind of thing, and kind of almost put yourself into a box just because you're used to people saying that to you or whatever, when maybe that's not even what you like to listen to or what you really value in music. And so recording made that painfully clear, of course, but also really not ever letting myself off the hook, that I'm only going to put something out that I would want to listen to, that I care about listening to myself. So those are two things relatively recently in my experience here that I think were some of the more educational things ever for me.
Okay, so I think it's already a lot of things and like being said, and I think I'll just combine something that Chad and Janice said. So I think definitely the network, the contact is very, very important in your career, because that's like basically how I like got my tour. Otherwise, like who am I gonna call for? So I went to a lot of festivals with my former professor, Professor Yi Chen. And also, she brought me here for the CSU Symposium. That's how I met Dr. Zong. And yeah, so I went to a lot of competition, and I barely win them, but I do made a lot of friends there. So after years, like when my playing finally got better than that, and I feel like, okay, I'm in a place I think I can start asking for concert. And I just like start calling all those friends and like, hey, like I know you have a guitar school. Like, do you want me to be there, like play a concert? And like doesn't matter how much you pay me again. So, yeah, I think the connection is very important. And also based on what I just talked is like you have to know like the music market, like what's the potential like opportunity that you can see. Because back to 10 years ago, like when I started my bachelor in China, there was probably, I only know the Beijing Guitar Duo or like another couple, 2, 3 quartet. So there were not really like any good or like settled chamber music group for with guitar in there in China. So I think if I started like playing in a duo or something like chamber music from my freshman year, through this like maybe 10 years later, I could be a really, really good like chamber player in China, and I can get my career or like performance as a musician. So, which is, I think I made a good guess. So even today, I think there is no violin guitar duo in China beside us. Yeah, like the consistent duo, like not like, oh, let's play one concert together. Yeah, so I think we're still the only like real violin guitar duo in China, which is still really unbelievable.
Waver, do you want to add anything? Or?
Yeah. So one of the interesting that I found after I talked to my friends is actually after graduating from school, with from you have your professor, you have a lesson consistently every week, and then you have no lesson, and all of a sudden they actually started becoming less good. I don't want to say worse, but less good, not as good, gradually, not as good as when we were at school. I had the experience too. So right after I graduated, we are a little bit different from the you guys here because we're international students. So after graduate, we have to figure out our visa problem. So we were very lucky. I was very lucky that right after I graduated, I got a job that would support my visa, my working visa. That's why we moved to Atlanta. But, the students you got there, occasionally, if you're lucky, you get good students, right? Like a high-level students which can play the piece you play in college, but most of them, I mean, if you guys teach, you guys know, right? They are not serious students, just kids, and the parents send to you, you know, spend, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes just to have fun. But, so yeah, so you don't have any, like, nobody pushes you. So starting, I think, 2020, the beginning of 2020, I started making video. So I upload my video in 2 platforms in China. Right now, it's been 2 years. I have a good amount of followers. But at the beginning, the first video I made was I record myself play La Campanella without a company, just at home by myself. But the first video, I didn't take this so seriously. But I mean, I played through 3 times, I think I recorded, and then uploaded. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, there were a lot of views actually for this video. I don't know how they came from. I don't know. I was really surprised. So ever since that, I gained a lot of followers just from that video. And then later on, people started asking, "Oh, can you play this? Can you play that? Some other stuff." So I started having, what's the word? What's the word? 动力. No, like I start having, I guess a goal, not a goal, but you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you know, like, sorry, sure, the passion to you know, record stuff. So I started picking up my older repertoire, because if not them, I don't think I would, because I'm not gonna be a soloist. And then for students, like I said, only somebody occasionally is playing that piece. Oh, I would playing back that piece, right? So yeah, I started picking up those pieces, and then actually I feel like from now, compare when I graduated, I actually improved. That's actually very rare, because you have no teacher. And I'm a teacher of myself now, because like, so now I teach, I guess we can talk about getting students this aspect later, because
yes,
that's another big
option.
That's
coming.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yes.
So anyway, so like recording yourself and upload to internet, because after you upload to whatever platform you guys upload, it's gonna become really like, people are gonna look at your, I don't know, mistakes, or you know, something good, something bad, like very, like they're gonna zoom in, right? Because it's only like, I guess, 1 minute, 2 minutes of video. And then they're gonna hear, oh, you played not round notes, but for us, we have, you know, out of tune thing. You guys don't, which very lucky. But you guys, yes,
quite
that's
a bit
right.
on the guitar, right?
So other stuff. So you would be extra strict to yourself. Like after one recording, you hear it, you'll be like, ugh, that's not good. So you're gonna do another one, another one, another one. So that's also another way of improving yourself, right? I guess that's what I want to say.
Great.
Yeah.
Do we have another question?
I guess I have kind of 2 questions in one. As a professional artist, or like in your career as a musician, how do you feel like you've been able to find your niche, or like what experiences have helped you like develop your niche? And do you feel like in your career you've ever had to find like a compromise between the things that you actually really want to do, like the things that you're passionate about, versus what you think will be like more helpful in like finding a job, or like trying to get in the market, I guess?
That's a very good question.
Well, I mean, you know, for me or for us, you know, we love teaching. And you know, just as she was talking about improving yourself, you know, teaching, you know, especially when you do it consistently and you're doing it and you love your students and you start having your own studios and you spend a lot of time with it, you start learning a lot about yourself, about, you know, how to really get someone expressing music, getting their hands set up properly, knowing what to say. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of experience. So in that sense, for me, that was something that really has helped, you know, me to find my niche. Because I mean, I taught all the time when I was really young, because, you know, way back then, you know, no one, you know, in the surrounding neighborhoods knew how to do it. There was no YouTube or internet. So now, after being trained, and my wife and I both do it, we have, you know, I think we have 76 students between us. That sort of thing that we see, not only is it very consistent work, we're not worried. We kind of, you know, we're the boss, so that's great. But I mean, for us, you know, that really taught us a lot and helped us find our professional lives. Because now, you know, like when we've just been on this tour, we just told everybody, hey, we've got to go do this, and we'll see you next month. Thank you very much. You know, and everybody was great with that. So, you know, I think you have to know if you want to teach or not. That's what my basic point. Because there are certain people that are in this and they just want to perform, they don't want to teach. And you've got to know if you like teaching. Because don't, you know, and I think you were going to say something, well, let me just pass it to you about that concept.
Well, yeah, I think really as you're going through school, I think it helps. I've had some colleagues who have gone through and even done education degrees, but never actually tried teaching until they graduated. And then went into teaching, got some kind of teaching job at a school, and realized they didn't like teaching, and then to go back and decide what they were going to do next. So I think my main thing would be to figure out what you like before you graduate, to try that out, or to watch someone do it, or do some supervised teaching or something to get into it a little bit, so that you know kind of what direction that you want to go into. Because if you're more into performing, like you were saying, you could start uploading videos, start getting your name out that way, and start sort of going that route as well. I think
you have to be realistic. It's the consistency of the work. I mean, you can wait to get the great job, or, you know, like we both had like 3 or 4 jobs in Austin. That was the other point. Make sure you end up in a city that's great for the arts. We have ACG, we have all these, Austin Classical Guitar, which is, I mean, we've performed for them maybe 50 times. They've done so many wonderful things. Matt Hensley, I mean, they're just wonderful. We're playing for them later, and, you know, we're playing in March with her, right? Oh, well, she takes care of the, but anyway, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, you know. I think with classical music, it's just always a good thing to teach, because it, you know, it really, it just makes it a full circle, really. I mean, if you're, a lot of other types of music, maybe not so much. I just think this one does. It just keeps you on your toes, especially as you get good students. But
I think that what she was asking about initially was the idea of compromise.
Yeah,
in terms of what you really want to do versus what you need to do to feed yourself.
Yeah, that compromise, though, I first thought it was a compromise, you know. But being a little bit older, and maybe I kind of made me slightly more realistic on the idea of, like, and it's stressful performing all the time, and, you know, I mean, competing all the time. I mean, Alec knows that. I mean, I remember Alec was doing it when I was doing it, and he was itty bitty, and he was awesome then. But I mean, yeah, just on the gauntlet. I happen to love it. It worked with my personality, just because it was just, you know. But if that's not your thing, you know, then it's teaching. And if that's not your thing, what Andrew was talking about is really understanding your brand, and or Alec, you know, understanding your brand, understanding what it is that you want to create. And I think there's something within, that's the diversity of it. And something that we hadn't talked a lot about is, like, you know, helping the community. You know, finding that's really, if you can find that thing that is a vision, a sort of idea, just wherever it is, some kind of service to the community with your vision, your idea, that could even be a new place where you started up. So I don't, there's just, it is overwhelming, kind of. But that's the great thing about why you're here, why we do what we do. There is not a shelf life, you know. With this kind of thing, it just, I don't know. I'm still excited about it, you know. And I've been a musician since I was, faking the guitar when I was 3, you know. And like I said, I went to school at age 31. I mean, now, being much older, I still got the same, you know, we do. And, you know, as husband and wife, I mean, so I can say, you know, the fact that you're here and that you've made the decision, you know, it's an awesome thing, but I guess I'll stop, but.
I'm still figuring it out myself, so you can choose to listen or not. I think as far as like finding your niche, I feel like in today's day and age, you can do literally anything you want to make money with the guitar, but you just have to convince people that it's worth it to them. And I feel like convincing people is a much more important task than we make it out to be. We think if we play really well, like our phrase is just right, that people will care. They won't. And a lot of what you see, you know, some of these higher paid classical musicians do is they're people's persons. They can talk to very rich people, and yeah, they can convince them to give them money, and they can convince them that they played well, whether they did or not. And I think that's really important. But you can also, you know, go out to the masses if you have a very specific idea that nobody else is doing. You don't have to be like a crazy technician to pull this stuff off. You just have to convince the masses that it's worth for them listening to it. Is this incorrect or?
No.
Okay.
There's no wrong answer in this forum.
I guess over time, that's what I've kind of learned, like the perspective change that I've had coming from school, where you truly are around your peers who know what you're doing, and you know your opinions are more closely aligned. But hell, 98% of the audience will be impressed by you playing Lagrima, and that's all right. I don't know where the idea came from that you have to do, you know, crazy competition work, or you teach. I think in today's day and age, like Chad was saying, you can do a lot of things, and there's no right answer. You can do multiple things at once. For example, I teach and try to do solo concerts while I'm working on my own personal projects. Which is my compromise. Until I do the things that I want to do, I do the things that I can do that potentially make some money. And if the things that I want to do don't make money, well, I'll do them while doing these other things that do make money.
So maybe I'll start by answering it from a performer's perspective. So I am in a little bit of a niche, and I don't ever want to advocate for boxing yourself in. I think that's kind of the trick that I was talking a little bit about earlier, that, oh, I only play this kind of repertoire or whatever. But the only reason, and I tried to absolutely limit it to this reason, was that I was drawn so much to the kind of music that I most often play is because I love it. That's it. That's the only reason. And I think it being only that is really important, and not any kind of extrinsic other ideas about what classical musicians should play, or what guitarists should play, or what people might find interesting. I've never really benefited from that, from trying to predict what people will care about, you know. And I think the musicians that I am the most drawn to consistently have taken that same approach, where it's based on a certain amount of hope that other people will see the thing you see in this thing in a similar way, or at least value that to a certain extent. So I think I'm really drawn to this Baroque and classical time period. I play a lot of other stuff too, but that's really, at least right now, that's what I'm really, really in. And I've been there in that space since I was probably 14 or 15, really obsessive about it. And the big compromise, which is kind of not exactly necessarily your question, but the big compromise is my own ability. And that's to achieve the things that I'm trying to achieve musically. And that's something that I'm still working on for sure. It's basically trying not to feel really guilty after I perform. I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but just knowing what's possible with this music and what I could do and what I could achieve, and not feeling bad about it, basically. And which is maybe not exactly what you're asking. I think maybe the other side of it that I could maybe address about teaching, which I think is also an important lesson for anyone that's trying to teach, is that I would love it if my students were as interested in the same way to this music, because I feel like that's precisely where I have the most to offer, because that's where my headspace is. That's what I'm practicing so much. You know, it would be amazing if they were really interested, and I've taught a lot of people that are really interested in these composers and doing transcriptions and all of that stuff. But I think as a teacher, the thing I'm always trying to remind myself of is that it's their artistic path, and I really don't have anything to do with it if I can't be helpful, you know. And I shouldn't put myself in any way in their way if it's not benefiting their musical intention and vision. So maybe that's a little bit more of you could call it a compromise, but I learn a lot from that as well, because I see value in those composers that I am not particularly drawn to initially, you know, but then when hearing what they're doing with that music, when sitting with it longer than I might initially or might normally, you know, if I'm not actively playing that music, I learned so much from that. So that's something that, again, I don't know if it exactly answers your question, but initially maybe it feels like a compromise, but then you benefit from that a lot. And I also see so many connections between this repertoire that I maybe on surface level wouldn't think it's connected at all to what I'm doing, but you look further and it's very connected a lot of the times. I think there's a lot more of these connections. You look at two composers that, if you can imagine the two most superficially different composers possible, and then you really start to think about the connections, I think there are a lot more than one might think initially. So I hope that in some way kind of, okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know if this is accurate answer to, so I think at the very beginning, after I graduated, I didn't really want to teach, so it's the same about the teaching thing. I just want to probably like practice and just play concert or whatever, like just play guitar for another 5 or 8 years. But a realistic thing is like you are out of school and you have to eat, you have to rent a place to stay. So, you know, you got to find a way to make your living. And I think teaching is something like probably after you graduate from school, no matter what your playing level is, like everybody probably could do. Because I just didn't want to teach a student, which is I teach them like what is an eighth note, and they still didn't understand after 4 lessons. But yeah, I just feel like so mad and like, yeah, I just feel like, oh, I wasted another hour or something. But after a while, like teaching that, I think I got a lot better, and I do like teaching now. But at that point, I just had this like thought is, because I know a lot of people here, after they graduate, they might like, if they need to make a living, they go work in a restaurant or find other jobs. And some people even just like give up music, like music career. They just like went to do something else. But for me, it's like I've been spending like all my entire like limited life on like studying music. So I didn't really want to like go to a restaurant or something, because I have a friend who's a violist. Like he works in a restaurant and he makes a very good like money because he worked really hard. And I've subbed for him once, and then I decided like, okay, I'll teach music. Like it's a much better feeling than like, you know, just sitting there waiting for the food order and like drive a car, you know, like out there. So I think no matter what, like even I explain what is the eighth note for a student for 10 lessons, I think that still feels better to me.
I've often said that because I was a waiter for a very long time in graduate school, and my best day as a waiter was so much worse than my worst day as a musician.
I agree.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, just when the guy in the restaurant called me and said, like, hey, like, go send this to this address, and next time when that guy needed a sub and he called me, I was like, you know what, just don't call me again for this thing.
I think they said a lot. I can skip this question.
Yes,
Can
yeah. Do we have another question?
I know we talked about it, or you talked about it before, but what are some skills outside of performing that you wish you learned or developed while in school?
That's a very good question.
I'm sorry, could you say one more time?
What skills, besides performing, you wish you developed while you were in school before you went to a professional field?
I would say definitely teaching and then a system that you want to teach in after you graduate. Because right now, how do I say? So I started learning violin while I was 4. So I really don't remember at all what did I do and how did I learn. My student asked me, how did you do this, like a very basic technique, like or vibrato and stuff? I was like, I'm sorry, I really don't remember what 20 years ago that I did. So I really wished if I could go back, I really wished I learned more about more basic technique and how do I teach students in a more, I don't know, just a more systematic way to teach them. And then, yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, what I think is probably important is to recognize the difference between being able to perform on an instrument is a completely separate skill, as opposed to how to articulate how to do that. And both of those things, aspects need to be discovered and cultivated.
I think for me, the stuff I learned, I feel like very important to me, besides performing or playing in the school, is like managing events. Because when I was in China, the Central Conservatory of Music, I've run 2 student societies. One is a rock music society, which is like that was impossible to have in that school, but like my former professor, she helped me to like register that, and I had probably like 50 people registered for my organization. But we only had 1 band because there is no people can play electric instrument in that conservatory. So basically, we got a lot of audience every time when we rehearse or like make a concert. And the second one, I made it like bigger. I made a film music society, which we had 90 people registered for that, and it was probably like 60 string players with a full like double guitar band and a couple like keyboard player and plus the like computer program. And we did 1 concert together and that's it. But the school was asking me like if you can do another like full concert, because it was just like a very short like opening thing what we did. And then but the school is not giving us any budget. So I was like, the gears, the speakers, and the microphones are not going to fall from the sky. I need to spend money for renting gears and stuff. But they were like, okay, then we don't have money for that. But then later on, the school had an orchestra just playing like film music, but they don't have people play in the band. So it's just basically like a traditional orchestra, but playing like movie musics. And yeah, I think I've learned a lot of stuff, like how I got those like people come like weekly before the performance for free to rehearse with us, and like when we need something, like how you solve the problems. And also as a like musician, like sometimes, you know, like if you, like I said, you go to a church, you want to play a concert, it's always better you come out with some idea instead of, oh, I'm just going to play a solo recital here without, you know, combining any other stuff. So if you have any better thoughts, like if you play in Fountain City, you can ask them if you want to do a like coffee like taste event, and I'll play a concert or something. That's always like brings you more audience and like give you better donation. I think if there's more people, and and then when I came here, luckily Dr. Zong had me to work for the symposium, so it's more like managing work and like coordinate with things. So I think that's like very, very important and good experience to me.
For me, there are a few things that come to mind, even though in hindsight, I feel like maybe I learned them at the right time, and a lot of these things take a very long time to learn, and you kind of gradually learn them. But two things. One thing is recording. I think a lot of people these days, a lot of young people are learning a lot really fast, and I think it's more accessible than ever. I recorded my recent album completely alone. I did all of the editing, mastering, all recording, everything. And again, like I said, that hurt. That was another thing that made it hurt, is because I was teaching myself and learning stuff as I went. And definitely would have helped to know, even though at the same time, I don't regret waiting to record something until recently, because that's another maybe advice, is that I didn't want to put anything out that I didn't really feel happy with, really, like I said, would want to listen to myself. The other thing, which maybe comes more naturally to some people, is organization. And in my experience, it really doesn't take a lot to be significantly more organized. And I think as I've gotten older, you realize earlier maybe it was easy for me to, and when I had less engagements and less things going on, it was easier to just think, oh, I don't have to write that down. I can just remember. I don't have to put a reminder anywhere. It's not really the case right now. And so there are a lot of amazing applications these days that are really useful for that. And that goes for both my practice, repertoire, really specific things that I'm working on, and teaching. And that's something as I'm teaching more students, really trying to be very deliberate about implementing writing down exactly what every student is working on. And part of the reason that's been really helpful to me is that I can much more easily plan, because I try to be pretty individualized with each student. I can much more easily plan what would be useful repertoire next, and what would maybe they haven't worked on with me at all, things like that. And I think I've worked, I really think that helps. So just maybe I had to learn that on my own, but I think if I were given advice about that it really makes a difference when you're really deliberate about writing things down, deliberate about correspondence. All of those things really make a difference in career, I think. And someone knows that if there is a problem, this person's going to respond relatively quickly and take care of the details around things and just basic information like.
So returning in emails and text messages you see as a priority. I wanted to highlight that, because I think of.
Do you not think I do that?
No. I'm saying as a greater lesson to the larger audience that returning correspondence is actually a pretty important part of our gig.
Well, it really, I mean, just thinking about if you are hiring someone for something, or if you're paying them in any way, it really makes a difference how you feel. It's like, am I just putting money out there and they're just taking it? Like, I don't know. And I think there's a line, of course. People, maybe it can be a little bit invasive at some points, but I mean, within reason, it really makes a big difference. When I'm paying someone for something, or if I'm being paid for something, I really try to be deliberate about that.
Yeah, I think all of y'all made some great points. I would say organization and recording is definitely will be extremely valuable for sure. I guess you're asking this question because I guess you're wondering what you can do now to prepare for the future. I like the way that you said some things just happened when they needed to happen, and I feel like that's the case for me. I wish if I were to like talk to myself, if I were a student out there, I would have told myself to please just like be healthier in general and learn how to live a healthy life. I was like chain smoking cigarettes and drinking a lot, and looking back, like not so healthy. So when I got to the not school world, had all this time, and like getting a good exercise routine and all this stuff really helped me mentally to actually attack all the things that needed to, well, not attack, to accomplish the things that needed to be accomplished. And yeah, so that was very helpful for me. And I wish I started that sooner. Just like having a life too outside of music is good. And I think the sooner you can get on that, the less of it you'll miss. And what else? Shit. I don't know, because everything that like I've learned in the last 2 years, like how to wire DMX cables and like how to work with lighting software and do mastering and mixing, it kind of happened on its own time, and it's because I wanted to do a very specific thing. And so maybe you could think about what is your specific thing, like just ruminate on it for the next years or however long you have left in school, so that you'll be at least not out of school and then wondering now what. So at least you have an idea of like what you might want to tackle. There I go again with tackle. What you might want to accomplish when you get out of school.
Yeah, I think just kind of piggybacking on what you all said, just once you sort of have an idea of what you want to do after school, just trying to think of every skill you'll need, or not every skill, but the skills you can equip yourself with to do that. For example, like teaching, talk to your teacher about how to start a student, or take any kind of teacher training courses on how to do that, because sometimes you're in a performance degree, but you're going to end up teaching someone from the very beginning, and you might not have thought of all the what method do you want to use, all of that sort of thing, or how to start out a student. And then I feel like logistical things like, how to build a website, like all of you said, how to record. There's so many skills that go into that. Luckily we have Chad recording, but I don't edit recordings, which I kind of wish I did in school, because everybody at some point should be able to do that. Just even to make a YouTube video or just an audio to send off for anything. So I think there are many skills that I guess one for me, I wish I would have spent more time on like Finale and Sibelius, so that I could get really quick at it when I'm ready to do a transcription. I could learn, just go ahead and type that all in, instead of, but like you said, sometimes that comes at the right time. When you're finished school, you figure out how to do that stuff. But just sort of figuring out what your vision is and what skills you'll need to develop to get there, so that it's quicker later to do all of that stuff.
Yes, certainly it seems that playing the guitar is the beginning of the journey, and then you have to pick up all these other associated skills, people skills, organizational skills, technical skills. Of course, the wider berth that you have in all of these skills is going to make you much more hireable for all sorts of different things.
Oh, next question.
Do we have another question?
Yeah. So especially after the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people will be more aware about how important having an online presence, whether it is like social media or having like a website is. I just was wondering, like, how effective has that been for you guys?
Well, very quickly, for us, we don't spend too much time on it. I mean, we spend some time, and when we do, things usually kind of start growing. Like certain things come up faster. Like I said, just for us, I mean, there's a bit of, I guess what we think is practical. Like I said, that's why we decided to just build our own business. And like I said, we really love teaching too. I mean,
why don't we take this opportunity? You can talk about your business that you're doing.
Sure, it's no big deal. It's just, like I said, being in a place where music is valued. I mean, if you're in Texas, the place where I would say, I'm originally from Houston. But like, if you're a guitarist, if you're a classical guitarist and you're in Austin, people will pay for lessons. So like, that's one thing. And we love teaching. And a lot of times, I mean, there are students we have, they take a little lessons from me, then they take some from Janet. You know, and back to the idea of challenging yourself and making yourself better. I think really absorbing what Dr. Zone taught me and Adam Holzman, Professor Holzman, I really began to understand it more when I became a teacher. So for me, that's the practical thing of being a teacher. And the online thing, you know, I'm not the best at it. I mean, there's, you know, we don't do too much of it because we still like a bit of privacy. I don't know if that makes sense. You know, it's like we like doing that, but we also have something that we have and that's stable, that we love to do. And that was the one thing, when we were talking about compromise, that's one compromise I won't do. And Erdogan was saying this, you know, doing another type of job. Whatever it is that we're going to do, it's definitely going to be music. It's going to have music involved. And if it's either giving through the teaching or performing or many other, all the different shades in between. You know, that's the one thing you have to stay steadfast that course. But hopefully that helps.
If that's your course.
Yeah. Yeah, if that's your course. And if it's not your course, know to get out. You know, if it's something where it's just, you know, this and that. But like, you know, in building a business or it's just, you know, you're going to be spending a lot of time doing what you do. So you've got to make sure you love it. Because if you don't, you know, but it's hard. It's hard in a certain way, but like, you know, it's what we do every day. So we love performing, and we're in the Austin Guitar Quartet, and we do duo, and then do solo concerts. When we're not doing that, we're teaching, and it's always about music. It's always about learning, always about getting better. And something that Andrew talked about, you know, like teaching styles that you may not be into. That's another great thing about being a teacher. I think of it kind of like being a character actor, just always getting into different styles, trying to see its value, trying to see its thing. And if it's online presence, that's another thing. If you know, you've got to be able to do many different styles, I think. Or that's the fun thing about it. You know, when you're in a band and you're just doing original material, it's your own stuff all the time, promoting the same thing. The great thing about this is that you can change your hat. You can play something incredibly dark and 20th century and crazy, and then you can play something, you know, beautiful, you know, or you can, like Bach, or you know, something very structured. So, you know, I don't know, it just, like I said, it depends on the different places where you want to go. If you want to be all online all the time, every day, people are doing that and they're doing awesome. I mean, this is the time. But if you're, I just say, either you're the type that you're infectious about it, you can spread it, you can create the scene, you go, you know, there was nothing in this town, you show up and boom. It's like there's guitar everywhere. If that's you, cool. We stayed in Austin just because it's like, wow, the arts are so valued. So I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of the way I look at it. But
I'm kind of banking on the online stuff. I've put about a year and a half of prep time before I started releasing videos like a month ago. And already from that, and I haven't gotten like any overnight lots of views or anything, but even from that, I've already have like 3 potential concerts in the works just from people knowing you're there and liking what you got. And I don't know, one thing I would say, because when I first started studying what these people who were very successful online were doing, I personally disliked a lot of it, and I felt that, oh, maybe I need to copy them to, you know, have this type of success. But there are always other ways, because I noticed, like, I've seen a lot of people trying to copy other material of other people, and now it's kind of like some of it has turned into like this kind of like bland soup of stuff. And so I would hope that if you do something online, just try to make it your own, and just don't care what anybody else is really doing, because it already exists. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think it's a really tricky space right now because, like Chad was saying, I also am not really active in any of that, and with the recording recently, that was actually my original plan was to record videos, and then ultimately I decided just to do an album because I felt like people would actually listen more carefully. And just thinking about my own experience, that if I'm watching a video, except with a few exceptions, it's more about watching it, like watching it once, and then that's great. You know, that's even a really incredible video. But the albums that I love, I listen to so many times, and while walking, while on the bus, all of that stuff, much more part of my daily life. So that's the direction that I went with that, just for that reason, at least knowing myself that I listen a lot more when it's just an album. But anyway, I think it's really important to be very careful with it artistically, kind of protecting your artistic self. And exactly like what Alec was saying, because it's really easy to be influenced by what other people are doing in a more social media music space. And I think, again, at least from my own experience, I require a lot more introspection than what I imagine I would be doing if I were more focused on that. So, which is actually, like privacy, really difficult to get these days, I think. And so, artistically, I would just advocate for being, very careful with the amount and being as observant as possible with yourself. How is this affecting me artistically? How might this be influencing me in a positive or negative way? Because like you said, there are so many people that are doing really well with it and doing great things, and a lot of really great teaching. There's a lot of really awesome stuff out there, and then some stuff that's maybe not so helpful, and for the person themselves, even for the people that are creating it. Because I think being very protective of, and I feel this way about competitions as well, actually, that for certain personalities that can be so beneficial and amazing, like really exactly what they need. For others, and myself included in this, I am more concerned about how it influences me, where I feel like there's a risk of it being not what I want to do musically and for it to be beneficial to someone else, where I'm giving something, but rather to impress someone. And I think that switch is something you can really easily witness in performers. And so whether it's actually giving something in a loving way to an audience versus trying to convince a jury of something, that's a really significant difference. And I think just something I'd like to advocate for, basically, is that, as a performer, we're giving something, that it's ideally, it's a generous act, ideally, in my opinion. And that's not necessarily about social media, but I think some of that introspection and some of that, it's a tricky, really tricky territory, in my opinion. So I think being as aware as possible of the way it may or may not be influencing your artistic life is really important. Do you want to?
With that too, like if you're okay with being like kind of a whore, then totally do it, because it actually it pays off well for some people. It's not saying like don't like try to maintain your artistic integrity, but there are other people who are not maintaining it and having a lot of success. So if you want to like get a big audience real quick, yeah, go for it, I guess. I mean, the option is there.
Of course, if that's what you want to do, of course. Yeah, I'm just.
That's another point. It's the maintaining of it, because you see people that are doing it, and it's every day, and so it's and you think over the years, you know, we don't know exactly how much it translates, you know. So that is the point. I just wanted to forward. Those are great points.
We probably have time for one more question. Mia.
You're talking about, yeah.
I wanted to ask this question because through the years that I've been with Dr. C, I've noticed that to become a good guitar player is not only about how Dr. said moving your fingers, it's all about more of like learning about other arts. So my question was, have you guys encountered any other type of art that has influenced the way that you see music, play music, or like, if it has made you grow?
That's a good question.
But no.
Someone answer.
Well, I don't think I've learned any other type of arts besides music. I've tried painting, but I was really, really bad with that. And I got one chance, which when I was in the elementary school, there is this I think called Central like dancing school or something like from Beijing. They sent somebody to my hometown to looking for young kids who is gonna do dancing, and they went to my school and they picked me as the only one, like who they said like you have this like body like something like it's just like it's very we think it's really good for dancing, but yeah, I was like I don't want to do that. So yeah, I think I've only learned music, but I started with a keyboard when I was 4 years old, and then I learned a little bit piano, which I can still like doodling around with that, but not professional at all. And then I just feel I didn't really like keyboard instrument, because when I was young, when I see like string players, I feel like that's the real instrument, like you can touch it and you can really make the sound like out by your like body, like touch with it. Even like the wind instrument, like you blow your air in, like, and like you make the sound. But I feel like keyboard, you just like press on that key and the machine does the job for you. But I know like now I understand like that also like takes a massive of work for people to really like make the phrasing and everything is like, yeah, but then I was like, oh, I don't like piano, so I wanna just quit.
I think just to clarify, I believe, Mia, your question was how does other arts,
yeah.
Not necessarily that you've done other arts, but how does other art influence your music
Well,
making?
I would explain this in my music experience. So then I learned a little bit drum set after piano. And then like eventually I saw the guitar at that teacher, because he teaches like multiple stuff, and I was like, I want to do that. That just looks so cool, and that's how I started playing guitar. But then I figured that, well, since I've learned the piano and the keyboard when I was like 4 years old, also like my grandfather was the first music teacher to me, so I learned like harmony, like chords pretty early. So when I was around like 5 years old, I already completely understand like what is a triad chord, and I could be able to understand all like what does all different keys mean, and then the experience learning drum set, that gives me a like very good sense about rhythm. So yeah, and also like you do different rhythm with your different arms and stuff. So I think that's also like influenced me a little bit, yeah. So I think that's what my story is.
So I love this topic, and maybe it's just the way that I think as Dr. Zhang. I mean, you know as well. I really think about. I'm inspired by so much different art, not just art, but really anything. I mean, definitely sports as well. I think. There's a lot more to be learned. I mean, someone like Federer, or a lot of people about technique, about anything really. But absolutely different arts, and in multiple ways too, because of course there's the side of it where you can understand a time period more fully by the different things that are happening at that time, of course, but then also seeing connections, again, like what I was talking about with two different composers that seem completely disparate, or completely distant from each other, I think a lot of times there are way more connections than it would seem superficially between, that includes all kinds of popular music, popular art, anything, really anything that if you think about what the kind of deeper level intention from that artist that may not even have any idea of this other one, it's kind of incredible to see not only different art forms, but genres, all of it very, very distant from the bird's eye view, perhaps, or maybe from the kind of societal view. But I think it's really valuable to see and be inspired by all different people, but also think about what kind of deep artistic kinship you have with completely different artists, and talking to actors, talking to all kinds of different people, definitely performing art, but visual art as well. I kind of grew up in that a little bit as well with a lot of music, but then I have siblings that are visual artists as well, and we talk all the time about the things that are really, really super similar, and especially the kind of deeper intentions behind things, but then also how different the process is, and where I think it really helps to more fully understand what it is to be a musician or a visual artist, where you can see these are the many things that we can immediately find that are different, but then also all of these other things upon closer inspection, how many things we share. Philosophy, too, is a big influence for me. So I think looking for that is really, I don't think it's ever a waste of time. Really trying to think about that is always, in my experience, always been valuable.
I mean, really, I think what you're mentioning is like, it's just everything you experience in life you're able to put towards your instrument. I can't say like for like very purposeful forms of art, like visual art, it does nothing for me, and I can't really put that to guitar, but philosophy, definitely. I feel like up in my head it's always a big gushy mess, and I'm just trying to figure out what's happening, especially as it applies to making my fingers work at certain times for certain reasons and using different sounds. It doesn't always line up for me, but that really helps a lot. And also like learning some about neurology and how our brains work is really important too. But yeah, so everything kind of just, you can apply anything to guitar or music, and you're bound to find a connection that might help.
One thing you were saying, real quick.
This will be the end, yeah.
Okay. Something real quick. Something I touched upon before. When you're playing a wooden box with plastic strings and you're playing to a non-guitar audience, the idea is to be kind of like, I think you can learn the most from dramatic actors and or anything from the stage, because you're trying to, and the introspection that Andrew's talking about is that almost like a Paul Galbraith kind of, you know what I'm saying? But it's what he's talking about, which, I look very forward to hearing him, because this would be my first time to actually hear him live. But I love that idea, and there's the more physical type, where it's really communicative. But both ways, it's just, you've got to find some way, as, if you're really wanting to perform, to really communicate. So for me, it's like, and what's cool about a classical guitar is that you don't have to keep doing the same styles. You can really change your hat and just really, that's what we like to do. Just when we're working on a particular style of music, we just try to grab the culture as much as we can, and then all of a sudden go to a completely different place, or, different style genre. That's why I think keeps you interesting, or I think it helps for me personally. But that's what's so cool about it, because you don't have to live in your own skin all the time in one way. But
all right, so we're out of time. I thank you for the audience for coming and for our distinguished panel. The two concerts that are tonight and tomorrow at 7:30. If you are local, please join us in Legacy Hall, and the concerts are free and open to the public. If you can't, you can find us on the Schwob School of Music YouTube channel or the Schwob School of Music Facebook page. And 7:30.
7:30. And tonight's concert is the WE duo, Wei Ru and Erdong, guitar and violin, followed by Alec Holcomb. And tomorrow at 7:30 is Andrew Wilder and the Everson duo, and I hope you can join us for both events. Thank you very much, and thank you to our panel. Who besides me wants to get a coffee? Let's go get a coffee.